Hello, fellow Rosarians. Thank you for joining me today. I thought it would be fun if we walked around and looked at the projects that we've been working on. We're going to do that in the beginning, and I've been talking about spilling some tea on everything that we went through with the contractors and our fence. So after the walkabout, we're going to do that, and I really hope that by sharing our experiences, writing contracts, and dealing with contractors, that it will help you as you're planning your spring projects and gearing up to do some fun things in your yard. So let's go ahead and walk around and let me show you really quick. We have added the fence, and I shared this with you in one of our recent videos. I'm going to talk about how this changed. This is the second fence that we put up. The first one actually had privacy that went almost all the way out, and so it was kind of a mixed blessing that we got to see how it looked and change our mind and decide to bring in more picket to open it up. So once we got the fence up, we had to pull back some of the magnolias and cut some branches where it was touching the fence. We've also been working on trimming these boxwoods here in the knot garden. I'm keeping them at 12 inches tall, approximately. Let's see all of the boxwoods on the other side. I moved the urns in front of the fence and then added some concrete pavers there so that they're nice and level and I don't have to worry about them leaning in either direction. I need to clean up the pavers on the edge of the driveway. That needs to be done periodically. You can still see beautiful mulch down there that will go in March after we're done with all the bare roots. So as we're looking at the fence and what we decided to do here, we put a privacy surround around the electrical box, and I'm thinking about having climbers here so that they'll peek through the fence so that people are driving by get to enjoy those. And it was difficult for us to make the decision where we wanted the pickets to end and the privacy to start. So you might be able to see a hole right there, but we can see through to the neighbor's property and they're keeping it really nice and clean. And so we wanted to have it symmetrical on the other side of the property. And so you see that hole there. That is, we've got 4 of them. Everywhere that the privacy meets the picket, those are custom transition pieces. I'll show you up here on the screen how it looks, but they go from 4 foot to 6 foot with a little bit of a swoop. And those are back ordered 2 months or so, so we should have that soon. So you can see a fountain here that we're setting up. We had a concrete base added here as well as electric so that we are ready to get up and running in the spring. And if we look over at the queued up projects, not my little girls, these are the projects that we are working on. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, we're going to be able to do a DIY fire pit that I can share with you. And then I've also brought in the pea gravel so that I can clean up this walkway. When we had the post dug for the fence, you can imagine, all of the dirt that it caused. So I'm looking forward to getting this cleaned up and looking pretty. And so what I've been doing in the meantime is stacking my pavers along the edge so we've got a nice clean edge, and that will also help to make sure that the pea gravel does not fall through the fence line, and then I'll be ready to go on that. We're hoping to add another vinyl arbor here at the front and considering a gate because I love gates. But that will be hopefully this month, something that also takes place. So let's keep heading down. So we're here at the last arch, and you can see that I have added a statue here. I wanted there to be some kind of statuary that kind of pulls your eye as you're walking through the arbors. And my hope is that it'll be surrounded by the limelight hydrangeas, and there's a lilac here, and I just want flowers, you know, all through surrounding that statue. But let me get closer so that you can see it. Isn't that pretty? All right. And then Miller is over near where we're going to be putting the new fire pit. I just have so much debris for the yard with cuttings and so forth. It just doesn't make sense for us to be bagging it up. But let's see, and this is where the old fire pit was, and I have already seeded that, and I'm hoping that it'll start pushing grass soon. But I'm real excited to show you my urns down here. So when we went on our trip to England, I really liked how there were focal points that pulled your eye in one direction as you're meandering around a garden. And so my hope is that while people are at the house, certainly they'd be looking at the water anyways, but this just adds more of an emphasis and kind of begs you to come on down to the water and see what's down in these gardens. And so I've shared with you that this is where our star garden will be. Now, these urns may look familiar to you. Laura from Garden Answer has these. They're unique stone, and they're called the Savannah urns. They're on a pedestal. These are, I think they're called garland pedestals. But nonetheless, when I was planning this garden, I was worried about the height of these, and I wanted to just have the Savannah urns on the ground, not on a pedestal, because I was kind of thinking about, the rose height of new rose babies, and it's going to take 2 years for them to get to mature, and I just didn't want this area to feel overwhelmed by the planters. But my husband said, go big or go home. We're either going to do this or we're not, so let's just do it in the beginning. So we hired somebody to bring in the payers for us, set the concrete, get everything level, and set these up, and here we are. In the event that it just still feels too overwhelming for the area, then I can always take them off the pedestal, but I really think I'm gonna like them. You can see I've already started marking in here where the boxwoods and the roses go. And if you've watched my previous videos doing a walkabout, you know that the benches here on this walk was a little bit of a source of conversation between my husband and I. He wanted to have urns, a planter here rather than benches, and it's flanked on the other side here by another bench. And I just really liked the idea of being able to sit down here and enjoy the roses and the view. And so how I approached that conversation with him was that we could always decide to move to the planters later, but we needed to get the concrete done while the guy was here. And so at least the pad would be there, and it's easy to switch out to planters later if we want to, but we wanted them to be at least a good starting point to be able to utilize these benches. I love the design on the benches. So here they will stay until forever. But until Ken and I decide otherwise. But you can see with the grade of the earth, we've got, those are definitely level, but then we've got the grade of the earth, which kind of plays with your eyes. We've got the grade of the fence that plays with your eyes. And so I have already reached out to a landscape company to get some quotes for how much it's going to cost to terrace this and level it off. But that's probably something that's not going to happen this season, just because I expect it to be pretty pricey, and we've already kind of spent our budget that we're going to for this season. But let's go down to the pier and see how it looks from down here. So this is how it looks from the water, and you can see I had to add a boxwood here and another one over on this corner because the dogs still had a way to squeeze by and escape from the property to go be social and visit people. So we put that there to try to stop them. But I love seeing the benches here. I can see the urns, and so I'm really liking the structure of this. I've mentioned to you that we're going to be doing a major renovation in the summer, and I anticipate that the look of the house is going to shift a little bit. So I'm kind of hoping that it lines up a little bit more with the walkway, but in either way, whatever it is, it'll be fine. We'll walk up here. So I'm really looking forward to getting started in here and planting, but let's go ahead and have a seat and sit and chat about my lessons learned hiring contractors. So I've got my cup of joe here, and I thought that we would just talk about the lessons learned that I've had. And, you know, Ken and I have been married for almost 30 years. And so with that, we have contracted a lot of work through our houses because we're just not, a lot of it we can't do it ourselves. When we first started out writing contracts, we didn't know our rights, really. I mean, we were it was uncharted territory for us working with contractors. When we first started out, we realized that our interests weren't protected. You know, it just seemed like it was totally one-sided, where a contract, either they did a verbal with you, and then by the time the project was finished, a lot of things had changed with, you know, warranty, price, whatever. Or we do write a contract, but it's just very vague. The first thing, of course, is interviewing contractors. Make sure that you have a good relationship and that you can communicate. Like many women out there, I'm sure that you've heard, at least being in the country, I have had contractors say, "Is your husband here? Would you like me to talk to your husband?" That's an immediate no. We can't work together because I'm the one that does all of the contracting. My husband is very easygoing, and so it's just easier if I'm the heavy when it comes to contractors. I've had contractors tell me as we're talking that they don't come out if it rains for whatever reason. That's an immediate no. We can't work together. But also, one of the problems that I have living in the country is it's hard to get people out here. I'm 35 minutes from everything. And so sometimes I'll reach out to contractors and they just don't even show up to give a quote. In this case, what we're going to be talking about is my fence, and I had 5 quotes. And I had 5 contractors come out and only 3 quotes. So what I want to do here, let me pull this closer, I didn't bring my glasses so that I can see, is that let's talk about bad experiences working with contractors. So as we were learning and we were first married, very house poor, we wanted to have trees taken down in our backyard. And so we contracted with somebody, and the terms of payment, it was all verbal. The terms of payment would be a year of making payments. You know, we broke it out by 12 equal payments. And so the work was completed to our satisfaction. And as we started through that payment process, 3 months in, they called for final payment. Oh my gosh. I mean, here we have 2 kids and a new house, and it was just overwhelming for us. So was there any money lost? No. It was just really frustrating for us being in that situation. Another frustrating situation where there was no money lost, only time, was I had Sears come out to do a repair on a grill. And they fixed it, and I paid them, $250. And 2 years later, I get a note from Sears saying that I didn't pay them. So it was a paperwork drill of finding receipts, finding that canceled check, and it took months to get it all sorted out. So always make sure that you don't pay with cash. You've got to pay with either a check or charge card so that you have a receipt for purchase. Another frustrating thing that was no money lost, we had a drywall contractor come out, the terms were half up front and then half when he completed the job. So he started and then he left. Fortunately, in that case, we didn't lose any money because when we got the new bids for the completion of the work, it ended up being that final portion, the same cost, what we were expecting to pay him had he finished the job. So then another big one for us when we were working on a recent project for our garage renovation, we had made it through all the trades, and the very last trade was the electrician. I had a contract with him, but it didn't say anything about payment terms, and I thought I could pay him with a charge card. That wasn't the case. And so when he called for final bill, we were scrambling, trying to, figure out how to pay him because he wanted cash. So those are the lessons learned that we've had so that we can write contracts that are mutually agreeable. But now I want to share with you the losses so that you understand that there can be losses along the way that you need to look for. And as you're writing contracts, you're doing your research and research worst case scenarios, what could go wrong. Make sure you get those kinds of things in the contract. One of the biggest losses that we've had is moving into the house that we're in right now. The air conditioning broke within the first couple of months, and I had broken my ankle. I was in a miserable state, having the cast on. It was hot. It was awful. And so we called several contractors to come out to fix the AC, and only one responded and came out, and he was out very quick. And so, we wrote a very quick contract that just captured cost, but not the warranty. I think it's really boring to talk about money, but it's not boring to talk about roses. So if you would allow me, I'm going to quantify this in roses. Each rose costs $30. This cost 500 roses, what we paid for with the HVAC. So we pay our 500 roses to him. He does the work. The AC is working for all of 2 months. It broke. The compressor broke. So he fixes it. 3 months later, it breaks. Hits the compressor again. 3 months later, it breaks again. At this point, he has said he's not covering it. We call the insurance company. They cover the compressor as a lightning strike, no big deal. It breaks again, like 5 months later. So we are a year and some into it now. He drags his feet and says that, he wants us to put it through the insurance company again. We put it through the insurance company, and they did an actual autopsy on our HVAC. They came out and said, we've already paid for this once. This is an installer error. They installed the compressor during rain, and now there's acid going through the lines. The entire thing is ruined, but it's his fault, and we're not paying for it. So we go back to him, and he says, I'm happy to sell you another system, but, I want another 500 roses, but I'm not going to warranty this any further. I mean, this is huge. And this is the first year that we were in our house. And at that point, I was so mad because he's a local. We thought he was going to take care of us. His name is everywhere, all the signs. Everybody knows him. But he's not going to warranty it. And we're out of the money. And I knew that I was going to eventually be doing a renovation. So I just, told my husband, I'm not doing it. We've got to finish paying off this HVAC that doesn't even work before we do anything else. And so we put window units in, and we've dealt with window units now for 8 years. And I just kind of dug in and said, lesson learned, and we need to be able to write firmer contracts specifying warranty. So from then, we've hired plumbers, and this is going to cost 166 roses. They started the job, so somewhere along the way, they're close to being done, or so they say, and they asked for final payment. So we paid them 166 roses, and they never came back. And it turns out that when we had it quoted by somebody else to finish the work, it was another 166 roses that we had to put towards having the work finished. Lesson learned. We needed to make sure that we do not pay people in full. So we were at 500 roses for HVAC. Now I've lost 166 roses for the plumber, but I think I'm getting better. So now finally another lesson that we had learned was a drywall guy. As he was bringing in the drywall through the second story window, he broke the window. He gets through all of the drywall and insists on final payment and assures me, such a nice guy, that he's going to take care of it. And it was like pulling teeth to get the window. He ended up bringing the window and dropping it in my driveway and left. He's not installing it, so now I've got to pay somebody to install the window, 33 roses. So fast forward now, here we are with our project, hiring a fence company. And, I think I'm learning a lot more along the way. So let's talk about the scope of this project. 1,450 roses. So I reached out to 5 different contractors to give bid, and only 3 of them came back. One of them was so low that I figured he wasn't using the products that we wanted. The other two were like right in line with each other. One of them was a fence company. That was their specialty. One of them was Lowe's. I don't know. I kick myself over and over again. Why did I go with somebody that it wasn't their specialty and they were contracting it out? I just think the salesman was really good. I liked him. We had a great repertoire between us. And I felt like the company that was specializing in fences, they were just so busy, and I was worried about the time for them to be able to turn it around, which says something. If they're that busy, I really should have, put more thought into why are they so busy, because everyone wants them. So we have Lowe's come out again. After we had decided that we were going to go with them, we walked the property, talked about everything, my expectations, what I wanted. He assured me he was going to take care of it. He writes an 8-page contract. And so 8 pages is a lot, and I know that people don't want to read that much. You need to read it and know your rights. Even though it's in the contract, you can strike things through and initial it and add addendums, which we did. We had learned so much from these other previous mistakes. I wanted to make sure that our interests were covered. When he was writing the contract, he kept on slipping up and not putting either the right footage that we need. We've got almost 1,000 foot of fence here. Or he wasn't specifying the brand name. Let's call that brand name the Trex of fence, because everybody knows the name Trex. You're not going to know this fence name. So I wanted this Trex fence, and I had done my research. It's wind rated. It's, what we need down here on the water. And for whatever reason, he kept on leaving that off in the contract, but I told him I would not sign until we had the square footage correct and the name of the product they were supposed to be using. Also, I made sure that before I signed the contract, I was working with the manufacturers to understand what proper installation was. One of the small things that I want you to know that I put into every contract, even before Geek, you'll see, and a lot of times the contractor will put that they're allowed to take pictures of the property and use them however they want. And so I put into every contract, no pictures can be taken for personal or business use. Why? My mom had, a lot of work done at her house, and it turned out that her house is now the front page of the 8x12 pamphlet that company gives out to sell their product. She was not given any compensation for that, and so I just don't want people, using my picture, something that I've paid full price for, and what is this, 1,450 roses, and they're making money off of something I paid full price for. So always consider putting that into a contract if that's something important to you. It's important to me. I don't want pictures. So anyways, this is the kicker with the Lowe's contract. Payment 100% upfront. I've learned this lesson before, but for whatever reason, I did it. I paid them 100% upfront. Things that I did cover myself, besides the reading through, I made sure that it said project to be completed no later than. I gave them the last of August. Customer will be satisfied with project. So anyways, the project started in September. So keep in mind, I had in the contract that they were supposed to start in the last of August, but I was just excited to get the project going, so I let that slide. So they get going, and little things happened, like we've got survey markers in the ground, and they removed a couple of them. Why would you do that? I mean, we've lined it off, but you're taking out this land marker that I think is legally obligated to stay on the ground. But when I brought it to their attention, they were like, oh, we'll go ahead and put it back. And I'm thinking, you guys are not qualified to put it back because it could be off just by a hair. But, I kind of let it go. But what I did do was document it. So as little things were happening, I sent an email to my salesman to say, hey, just want to let you know that this happened today. We'll keep going. One of the other things that happened is the fencing was shipped directly from the manufacturer so that I could see that it was labeled, it was, on a pallet, it was wrapped in plastic, there's a sticker on the front, so I knew that I was getting the product that I ordered. Well, but they didn't have everything, simple things like a 4-foot post, and then they would have to reach out to the vendor and get it again, and so there were delays getting in everything that they needed to keep going. What finally caused a problem was on one day when the team came, I saw that they had fence posts in the back of their truck that were muddy and scratched. And I walked over to him, and at this point he's almost done getting the whole thing up. And I walked over to him and said, and I hate confrontation, I really do. And I just said, please tell me that you're not using used products from a different project in my yard. And he got kind of an attitude with me and said, I'm using what I have on hand, and you're just going to need to be okay with that. I didn't have this product. And I was just shocked that he said that to me. And I kind of stood there for a second and stared at him, kind of like that. And then I just turned away and I said, okay. I immediately called my salesman and said, what in the world? I don't even know what this bait and switch is, that we pay you for a premium product, and not only are you using generic product, but you're using something that's used. I'm really confused. And he says, oh, I don't even know how this happened. We're going to fix it. Immediately document it, put it in email that you've had this problem and that you expect resolution. And so I did that, sent that off. And, we had a couple more conversations between the salesman and I was just so frustrated that here this contractor, the lead, foreman on site, thinks that it's okay to be switching products that, I'm trusting that he's putting in what I bought. So what happened next was that we had that Lowe's salesman come out, and now, 2 weeks or so have passed. The Lowe's salesman come out with that installer, and we were walking the property. And during this 2-week period, I'm like, hey, if he's messing around with this one thing, what else am I missing that he's not doing? And as I was walking around, I'll pop some pictures up here. I mean, the whole fence is scratched everywhere. There's scratches, there's marks, there's visible screws that are going through the posts that are supposed to be hidden so that they can secure it because they measured wrong. The spans were beyond 8 feet, and they have to be 8 feet so that the clips go in. The clips were exposed in several places. The spans were too big. Huge was they didn't screw together any of the fence. So every single privacy panel was just, put together like a bunch of Legos. They weren't even screwed together and secured to deal with these 70-mile-an-hour winds we get here. So as we're walking around and I'm showing it to both of them, everything, all of the problems, the contractor won't even talk to me. He's so upset. And when I would ask him a question, say, hey, do you agree with this? Is this, something that can be resolved? Dead silence. And so, I have to be able to talk to a contractor, and if he won't even talk to me because he's so upset, then it's not going to work. And so the Lowe's salesman said, let's have the manufacturer come out and look at it and see if these are problems. And so I said, sure, you know what, let's they have it written in their specifications, what has to be done, and it hasn't happened. But if they're willing to give me a signed letter that says, we're okay with XYZ, all these things, and we're going to warranty it in the event that you have a problem, okay, I want to be reasonable. So they came out and looked at it and said they've never seen anything like it in their life, that that it's definitely not to specifications and it needs to be fixed. And but when I had reached out to them initially, that manufacturer, they said that Lowe's was an authorized installer. I trusted them. And so, once the manufacturer went back to Lowe's and they documented everything that needed to be fixed, Lowe's tried to get another installer out instead of the one that did the work. And an installer came out, looked at it, said, no way, it's too big of a project, because what had to happen, you guys, the entire thing had to come out 900 feet because the spans are wrong. And at this point, we are, 6 weeks into the project, and I've got 3 foot of concrete in each one of these posts that has already solidified, and it's hard, and they need to dig out the concrete too. So nobody wants this job. So now we're back to the original installer, and they've got to make it right. So how many roses in? 1,450 roses into this project. And Lowe's says, we're going to take care of you. We're a big company. This is what we do. It doesn't matter how much it costs. You're going to be happy. And so they ordered an entire new fence from the manufacturer, 1,000 feet. And, it's in the ordering process then. And at this point, they say, we'd like to have the owner of the company come out and talk to you to make sure that you guys are on the same page, what needs to happen. He's going to make this right. And so the owner comes out, and we definitely had a personality conflict. And he said that he totally backs his employee using products that are inferior and not what I paid for, because I wouldn't know the difference, and nobody who's looking at it will know the difference. But when the manufacturer came out, they pointed out, I don't know if it was 20 posts that had been switched that weren't their product. So how do you warranty that, if they're putting in products that are wrong? So anyways, he backed up his employee, and when I was showing him little things and saying, hey, why is this, hand cut and modified? I want factory cut specifications so that it's fitting perfect and it's not modified. And he's like, this is the best I can do. You're not going to get better. And I just looked at Lowe's and I said, I really don't think this is going to work out for us between me and him. And so at the very end, what finally helped me was making sure that I documented every single conversation. I sent it to not only the sales manager, but they had put me in touch with the district manager. Everybody in the world was copied on my email trail that kept going and going, all of the problems. And I finally ended up saying to Lowe's, you've got to let me out of this contract. Your team is not qualified to do the work, and I'm not going to be happy. And they said, we're going to compensate you for your time and trouble. And I said, I don't know how you're going to compensate me, because this has been ongoing. You've had my money now since March. You haven't been able to agree to the terms of the contract, and now you have to take the entire thing out, destroy my property, my neighbor's properties, and my plants and everything here, put it back in. So as we were looking at it, and I said, if you're, the total outlay is 1,450 roses. If you're putting in a brand new fence, now you're out, 500 roses again, and you've got to pay the contractor to take it out. And so when we started looking at the money, I said, how does this make sense? I mean, I don't understand the Lowe's profit margin, but I don't think you're making any money off of this project. And in fact, you're going to be upside down, because for me, the compensation to make this, for me to walk away even somewhat happy, would be 1,450 roses. So I don't think that we're going to be able to come to an agreement. So you guys, they give me money back. So going through all of the hardships that we have with all of our contractors up until now, learning how to write solid contracts, keeping those email trails, modifying in the contract what we needed to so that it was mutually agreeable, all of those things helped. And the thing that I need you to know is it's very uncomfortable dealing with contractors. But if you have a solid contract that specifies everything that you want to happen, when things go south, you're not being a bad guy. You're just enforcing the contract and saying, remember we agreed to this and you signed off on it too? How about if we figure out how to make this happen? And it's so much easier than, just a contractor saying,
I did what I was supposed to. And oh, by the way, one of the things that I forgot to add that I can't stand is what happens when you have what happens when you don't have written contracts is oftentimes a contractor will say to me, this job's costing me more than I bid. I underbid and now I'm losing money. Or they actually try to get you for more money because they were off. And so it's important when you're writing in a contract to write, when they say it's going to cost 100 roses, sign it and say, project not to exceed cost 100 roses, and they sign off on that too, so they can't ask you for more money. So anyways, I signed with a new fence company, that fence company that originally was the same price as Lowe's, and this is their area of expertise. They were excited to come out during the winter and keep their people working. And when I walked around with him, looked at the project, and we talked about my expectations, every single time he said, oh, we do that, don't worry about that. Are you digging, concrete 3 foot deep, 6 foot soil on top so that it's not heaving? He's like, we do that. We are not dry pouring concrete. We're using liquid so that the fence won't move. Every single time he said, we do that. You don't even need to worry about that. It went in the contract. And so you need to make sure, even if a contractor is saying, oh, we do that, that's industry standard, put it in the contract. So I had written out, it will be installed like this. If the fence starts to shift at any time because of settling, you will come back and make sure that it's level. And so every little thing that they said that they do, and don't worry about it, I said, okay, then you won't mind if I put it in the contract. And he didn't. So there's little things that you'll learn like that. And so they got going. Everything was beautiful. The one thing, and so the other thing that I want to make sure, I'm going to put up here the final listing of things for you to put into your contract. How the work's going to be completed, when it's going to be completed, what are the payment terms, when is the scheduled start date, what is the warranty, how your property will be left, because you just don't want to have to be raking things out, and you're paying them so that you get a finished job. So make sure you put in there how you expect the property to look when they're done. Money not to exceed on all contracts. Any damage will be repaired before final payment will be made, and that would take care of that drywall guy who wanted me to pay him up front, and then he took his sweet time getting the window back to me. Project will be complete to owner satisfaction. Make sure that is in there. And then finally, when you make that final payment, so you're not going to pay for anything up front. It should be like 10% up front, 10% the day they arrive. Whenever you make that final payment, you want to make sure that you have a copy of the contract and write this at the bottom, or type up a new piece of paper that just captures everything again of for services provided, you did this, this, and this. My expectation is the warranty of this, and with the cashing of this check, you honor our contract and consider it paid in full. And that way, no lien can be put against the property if anything, crazy happens later with their employees and their staff and not paying them. In this final contract with the fencing company, they kept talking about how they wanted to take pictures of the fence because it looks so pretty. And I reiterated in that final check clearing letter that I sent to them, please ensure that you're adhering to the terms of our contract, that no pictures will be taken that will be used privately or professionally, because that was just part of the contract and the terms. So what is the silver lining from this fence project? Not only was it completed, it just took longer than I wanted, and I had to go through a couple of contractors to get it done, but we made changes. When we put that first fence in, we actually had privacy that went nearly all the way to the road, and we had a little bit more privacy down the back, and we realized when it was up, when we had those couple of weeks that we were staring at it, that we wanted to open it up so it didn't look as closed in. And so having that trial run helped us to realize that we wanted to change things slightly, and so we did. That's the silver lining, that we got the fence that we wanted, and we were even able to make a change when we went to the new contractor. So I want you guys to consider, if you're working on projects, this is a great book, the Owner Builder book, and this has given me the confidence to be able to write my contracts, know what to ask for, and I guess I bought this maybe about 2 years ago as we started working on this house and renovating. So consider this. I hope that this helps you to have confidence when you are structuring your contracts in the future for all of the projects that I know that you guys are going to be working on this spring. So thanks so much for letting me veer a little bit off track from roses to help you learn from the mistakes that we've made. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one.